Well, we know who the NBA Cup semi-finalists are going to be. I'm not going to tell you. I'll tell you later. But we're going to cover those two games, the quarterfinal games from Wednesday, some updated news, including news, I guess, on Kawhi Leonard, sort of, once again, maybe, I guess. Michael Bolton, what have you got to say for yourself?
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and I've got an announcement to make. I'm going to be dropping a newly minted crypto coin with Haley Welch, so stay tuned at the end of the show for some details. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Blue Sky, joshloyd.bsky.social, on Twitter at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at LockedOnFantasyBasketball. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LockedOnNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Also, LockedOnDaily.com. That's where you go to check out and get and sign up for your favorite NBA team's best ever newsletter. LockedOnDaily.com. Also, double bang, and hearing this one on the audio side, well, go watch the video. If you're watching my beautiful, beautiful face on the video side of it, well, go do the audio as well. That's how we double bang around these parts. Like I said, this is the end of the quarterfinal games for the NBA Cup. We're back to regular non-NBA Cup games tomorrow. And again, let me just put this statement out there really clearly. Now, I am recording this part of the show, this intro part, before the end of the second game. So I'm not going to tell you exactly the game. Stay tuned at the end for that later, right? But I will tell you right now that the Atlanta Hawks are playing another game this week. It is on Saturday against the Milwaukee Bucks. The New York Knicks are playing another game this week on Sunday against our Orlando Magic. Yes? The Dallas Mavericks are playing another game this week on Sunday against either the Warriors or the Rockets, which I'll find out later. The Oklahoma City Thunder are playing another game this week on Saturday against either the Warriors or the Rockets. To answer your next question, do they count for fantasy? Yes, they do. On ESPN? Yes, on ESPN. On Yahoo? Yes, on Yahoo. On Fantrack? Everywhere. Every one of these games counts. That is it. There is nothing else to be done for the fantasy schedule. This is it. There is no more games being rescheduled. There's nothing else changing. The only thing that does not count is the NBA Cup final on Tuesday. It does not count. That is it. That is it. So we will have everything locked down by the end of this show. I'll say capiche, but I'm not Italian, but you know what capiche means. We get it? We understand? Comprende? I think that's also a word. Yeah, we're good now? I hope. I know we're not, because I know there's still going to be people confused by this. But the Knicks have one more game. The Hawks have one more game. The Magic have one more game. The Bucks have one more game. The Mavs have one more game. The Thunder have one more game. The Warriors have one more game. The Rockets have one. The Warriors and the Rockets have one more game. And those games are either Saturday or Sunday. Good? Cool. So we're going to recap the action on... that says Thursday, but that is just me making an Australian error because that's not the Daily Looker. This is actually just the NBA recap of the action here on Wednesday across the NBA. So let's just take a look at some news updates. And yesterday there was some, light fluff pieces about Kawhi Leonard and bobblehead night and seeing him back doing some practice. And you know that I showed some skepticism around that and I was a little bit doubtful and wasn't all that interested in the fact that he was doing shooting because, to be honest, I thought he was already doing some shooting. And the fact that he just started now makes me even more worried about where this is going. And then Shams Charania came out today with a report saying, yeah, by the way, that return of Kawhi is not imminent. That doesn't really mean anything in terms of a time frame, but it also just means that, no, it's not happening soon. It's not happening in a week. It's not happening probably in 10 days, I would guess, because that was what imminent would likely mean. And I remain on the position, and I have that same spot as always. I don't want Kawhi Leonard on my team. I've got him on one of my teams. I just don't want him on there, and I wouldn't try to acquire him. I think it's going to be a consistent and persistent ongoing issue with that knee all season, and I do not know when he will be back. This is probably the first one of these situations that we've got happening this season. It happens every season, and I'm going to say the same thing about this that I say all the time. the reports about Jimmy Butler being traded. It's not about Jimmy Butler being traded. It's about Jimmy Butler. It's about any player being traded. Now, the Jimmy Butler trade situation, I talked about this. I alluded to it in about January last season. January 2024, I alluded to this. I talked about it in the offseason quite a bit, that there was a gigantic possibility of Jimmy leaving and that him and the Heat were not seeing eye to eye. He thought he was better than he is, and they think that he is worse than he thinks he is. And there's this huge sort of rift between the two. That was something that I had heard for almost a year now. So the whispers are out, and Shams is tweeting at this, and there's a lot of speculation about destinations and all sort of stuff. And now Jimmy Butler's agent's coming out and saying, Shams, my guy, basically like, I'll meet you out in the parking lot, let's fight because you're lying. So I don't actually know what's going on there, but that's really not the point, because I'll say this as bluntly but also as caringly as I can. I don't care. I don't care whether Shams is making it up or lying, or someone has told Shams this and it's the Heat. I don't care. I don't care what Bernie Lee is saying. Bernie Lee's told plenty of lies as well. Shout out to Ben Simmons and his health status. Bernie Lee's told plenty of lies in the past about his clients. So I don't care about that stuff. I don't care, and this is just going to be a blanket sort of segment and comment here, which we've got time to do today, about this. And for someone who claims they don't care about these sort of trades going down, I'm going to spend way too much time on it, but for a very specific reason. I don't think you don't waste your time for fantasy. I'll waste the time now telling you not to waste your time. Because you could make this, what's going to happen to Jimmy? Could Jimmy get, if he gets traded somewhere, would his value go up? Will it go down? What about who do I stash in case that Jimmy gets traded? Ignore it. Literally ignore it. Some of the things that get chucked out, like the Phoenix Suns being a destination for Jimmy, you know how hard that would be to pull off given the second apron constraints of both teams? And the fact that you can't aggregate salaries, and so many different machinations would be required to get that to happen. Or it's the Rockets, or it's the Warriors, or it's this. I tell you why you don't need to be making your life any harder for fantasy by trying to think about this. Is the amount of variables that go into this makes it impossible to get even anything close to any sort of accuracy on it. Number one thing is, will Jimmy even get traded? Right? So we don't even know that. We have no idea whether Jimmy will get traded. We don't know. The amount of times that this stuff comes out, shout out to John Collins, shout out to Miles Turner, of players who are getting traded, D'Angelo Russell, DeJounte Murray, and it doesn't happen all the time. So that's your number one variable. The next part is, if he was to get traded, already a big if, when would that happen? Tomorrow? January the 1st? January the 15th? The deadline? I don't know. That's a lot. That's a big time difference. That's over 2 months. It's around 2 months difference of times that can happen, right? This next thing is, which team? There was 4 or 5 names floated out there, but what if another name comes up and you've got 5, 6 different team options perhaps that Jimmy could get traded to, or any other player, right? Which means, if he goes to that team, then how you got to figure, what if Jimmy goes here and he goes here and he goes here and he goes here and he goes here? Where would his value lie? What to do to everyone else? Don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it. Because the next part of it is, if he was to go, then you've got to guess, A, if he gets traded, B, when he gets traded, C, what team he gets traded to, and then D, which players also go back in the trade. Because if Jimmy goes to Phoenix and somehow they find a way and Bradley Beal isn't included in the deal, well, it's a very different scenario than if he goes to Phoenix and Beal stays there. It's a very different scenario if Tyus Jones is there or not. If he goes to Houston and it's Fred VanVleet going the other way, or it's Jalen Green going the other way, or it's whatever, it's very different. So if you're trying to go, I'm going to stash this guy in Miami like Rozier because Butler's getting dealt. Well, what if Rozier's a part of the deal and it's this mega trade? But what if the players coming back in a Jimmy deal would play over Rozier anyway? Or Robinson, or Smith, or whoever you bloody think? There are too many variables to have any sort of value of I am stashing this guy for something that might not happen. You don't know when it would happen. You don't know where it would happen to, and you don't know what players would be involved. So, I'm not going to do the whole probability matrix on this, but you got about a 1 in 30 chance of getting something right there. And that is just not enough time to waste your brain power on. So, don't. And this is going to go for any sort of these weird rumor trades any point. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your thought process on it. React when it happens, but don't do anything, would be my advice. Because if you do, you're probably going to get it wrong. Almost definitely going to get it wrong. The next part of the news update is Mitchie Robinson. I thought maybe we'd get a Christmas return from Mitch, but no, apparently end of January. I already told you the other day that there was an error made on the injury report where Robinson wasn't included on that injury report. And there were people go, maybe do we go and grab him? I said, I don't think so. I would not be rostering Mitchell Robinson, who I believe is going to be Karl Anthony Towns' backup. And now he's still out another 6 weeks or so. And then when he comes back, he will limit on back-to-backs. He'll be a bench player. So no, we don't hold Mitchell Robinson. And the next question that people have already asked as well is, that means we have to roster Precious Achiuwa? No, absolutely not. You don't. And I'll talk about Precious a little bit later on when we do the Knicks recap. Another guy that is returning, well, he's actually returning. It looks like Max Strus, the Winter Soldier, is going to be back on Friday. And that the questions are rolling in. Do I roster Max Strus? I don't think so. Let me, again, be more specific on that. It's okay if you want to roster Max Strus. But does the man have any upside whatsoever? No, not really. I don't think. I don't see any real upside in Max Strus. What is Max Strus apart from a sexier-looking Kentavious Caldwell-Pope? He's on a team with the Cavs, and they're rolling out Dean Wade and Karis LeVert and Max Strus and Sam Merrill, Ty Jerome. Last season, Strus played probably the most minutes of his career, 32 minutes a night. He averaged 12, 5, and 4. He shot 42 and 79. He wasn't a top 100 player. He was barely a top 120 guy. It's like he's fine, but he's coming off a significant ankle injury. He is probably playing fewer than 32 minutes a night, I'm guessing, because it's not Bickerstaff coaching, it's Atkinson, and there's many different options they're going to roll out there. Pretty sure he's not going to be rolling at 4 assists per game this season. That would be my guess. But it's okay. If you want to grab him, it's not interesting to me. He's not an exciting player. He's not a high upside player. He's a low upside player, in fact, who is going to be pretty limited, I'm guessing, coming back. And that's just not someone that I'd prioritize. And if if he starts to look good later on and someone else grabs him, I don't think that's actually a loss. Sitting on someone like Strus and waiting for a return and waiting to see what numbers they put up, I just don't think that's going to be the best use of your time. I don't value him very much as a fantasy option, and I think most people are aware of that. We are looking like we're going to get Don Clingan returning pretty soon here, maybe even on Friday. That is a very quick return from an injury which obviously was called a grade 2 MCL sprain, and this man is returning within 2.5 weeks, which seems, again, very, very short-sighted. And we probably get Robert Williams returning around the same time as well. So the question's going to be, do you stash Donovan Clingan? The chances here for me is that Clingan's just going to go back and play those 13 minutes a night, 14 minutes a night, because Ayton's there and Williams is going to be there, and back to that same situation where you're waiting for an injury or a trade or something to happen. I would much prefer to have Clingan, to be honest, than a Precious Achiuwa or a Max Strus or a Mitchell Robinson. I'd rather do that, but I do think you're going to not see very much from him early on here when he comes back. So I guess that's all those updates that have come through at the moment. And sorry to be like a downer with a lot of that stuff, but I think it's important to put stuff in perspective. We will come back and we will talk about the actual games from the NBA Cup. But today's episode is brought to you by the Game Time app. You want to go to events? We all do. We want to make sure that the ticket experience, the buying experience, is positive. You want to make sure you're not wasting your time or your money, and that's where Game Time Picks comes in, the new feature from Game Time. Game Time is that app that helps provide you the best options to get those tickets to live sporting events, concerts, comedy, theatre, whatever it is. Game Time Picks cuts out the fluff. It just shows you the best deals that are available. You pair that up with your views from your seat that you get on Game Time as well. The lowest price guarantee, the event cancellation protection, all of that stuff is just what makes Game Time the go-to app for getting tickets to see your favorite team play. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks and download the Game Time app, create the account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create the account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, sorry that I sort of went on a little bit about those things and got a little bit passionate about the way that we talk about those things, because I think it's important, because there is people that waste their fantasy brain power in trying to figure some of these things out. And in the end, that's going to lead to a negative result in the totality. And I don't think we want negative results in the totality. What we do want is to talk about games. And the Atlanta Hawks, they go on the road. They go up to beat the fighting Tom Thibodeau's, the New York Knicks, up in New York, and they win at 108-100 thanks to an absolute powerhouse third quarter driven by both Trae Young and by Jalen Johnson. All right, so we'll take a look at this. Did I say, 108-100 the final score. All right, so let's start with Jalen Johnson, who continues to be ridiculously good. He played 41 minutes. He did sort of tweak his ankle at the end of this game, so just keep an eye on that. He missed the game over the weekend. We didn't really have much doubt that he would play here. 21, 15, and 7 with 2 steals and 2 blocks. Now, the percentages are pretty iffy, and he shot 20% from 3, but he continues to be absolutely ridiculously good with usage up and assist rate up, all that stuff, just pumping out big numbers. And there've been some people worried a little bit about what Trae Young provides, but 36 minutes for Trae. 22, 5, and 11. He did shoot 36%, which is obviously rough, and didn't hit his threes, but I think there's been a little bit too much hand-wringing about what Trae's been providing. He was solid enough. Wasn't the best Dyson Daniels game, but he still gets you 2 blocks, despite no steals. And Zach Ricochet continues to be one of the absolute biggest Jack candidates ever. Get that garbage out of here. I mean, he's not a Jack candidate. That is a very clear Jack. You Jack him everywhere. He is starting, but it doesn't matter. Ricochet, the number 1 overall pick, had 2 points in 17 minutes. He shot 13%, and somehow he is getting worse. He's not a top 200 player this season. I don't think he's going to be a top 200 player this season. You just don't need to roster him. Just simple as that. Just get rid of him in 10, 12, 14, maybe 16 as well. Maybe 16. The center position continues to be a source of frustration. 25 minutes for Capella, 23 minutes for Okongwu. No, that is not because I want to get really, really down and dirty with Onyeka Okongwu, because that's not true at all. It's annoying and it's frustrating just because there's nothing clear here. They can start whoever they want. I would think that when you invest a top 6 pick in a player, though, who's actually pretty good, that you'd want to just get an opportunity to see how he plays, but I guess not. But the problem is some days you'll get 28 from Okongwu, some days you'll get 22, some days you'll get 18 for Capella, then 26. And they're both providing enough value where if you've got Capella on your roster, if you've got Okongwu on your roster, fine. Whatever. Okongwu had 12 and 11 with 2 blocks. That's really good. Missed both his free throws. That's really bad. Capella had 11 and 13 and shot 63%. That's really good. I mean, it's not really good. Like, it's fine. But we're in that situation that if you want to have a Capella, have him. And if you don't, oh well. And if you want to have a Okongwu, roster him. And if you don't, oh well. They're just going to go back and forward and back and forward. And until something changes like that, that's how I'm going to view it. They are totally fine to be rostered and totally fine to be dropped. Whatever. Not worth the energy to try and figure out, well, what if the minutes go to 20? It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Just roster him if you want. Roster him. Don't roster him if you don't want to. All good. Fine. This is how it is until something changes. What about, though? What about my man? What about my man, DeAndre Hunter, who just did the thing? He proved my point absolutely perfectly. And there will be people, and you saw it from the non-fantasy playing, let's call them normies, that tweeting about, oh my God, this guy is cooking the Knicks. It's unbelievable. He did score 24 points, DeAndre Hunter. He shot 53%. He hit 4 threes, and he continues to be an absolutely ridiculously on-fire shooter. He was 4 of 5 from 3 for 80%. But our number one thought as fantasy managers on DeAndre Hunter, or any player that does, they go, oh yeah, but that's not going to hold, is it? There's literally no chance. Unless you're Nikola Vucevic, which I have been told he will 100% keep doing this. So that's the only exception there. But DeAndre Hunter just will not keep doing this. He was at 49% from 3 the last 2 weeks, and then he drops an 80% shooting night here. So that's going to push it way up. The sell high is fully in effect. But the other thing you got to look at is this man had 0 rebounds, 0 assists, 0 steals, and 0 blocks until about, 3 minutes left, and he ended up with 1 rebound. This is the sort of stuff that necessitates the clearest sell high of all time, because if he stops shooting 48% from 3, if he has a run of 30% for 3, or even goes back to 36%, you're talking about a 15-point player with 2 threes a game with combined 4 rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks, which is absolutely putrid for fantasy. So that's great that he shot well, fantastic, but don't overhype it. The ability, and I like to make this show forward-facing, forward-focused, right? That happened. Great. Well done, DeAndre Hunter. That is a fantastic shooting effort. But all it should make you do is go, oh, can this man ever do anything else? Because the shooting won't hold. We know this. We've seen it for thousands and thousands and thousands of games and hundreds of players. That you can't do this as a long-term thing. And you got to have something else to be able to ballast your fantasy production. And he doesn't, and he never has. So sure, ride this out. This is great stuff. But also sell high if anyone was stupid enough. Apologies to stupid people. But if anyone is stupid enough to give you a top 80 sort of a player back in return for DeAndre Hunter, you take it immediately. Because there's nothing here that maintains that value. Nothing. At all. The other one that's getting a little bit concerning is Bogdanovic. And I'm in a shallow format. I'm okay moving on from him because, what are we getting here? 7 points in 24 minutes. He had a steal. He had 2 assists. That's not very good. If you want to, you can hold. We saw some really strong value from him last season, but in that last season, DeAndre Hunter was limited. Dyson Daniels wasn't there. DeJounte Murray was there, of course. Good for him. But Bogdanovic is not the same guy at this point as he was last season. I would say there's maybe a little bit of Olympic fatigue for him, perhaps. The injuries obviously been a concern, and I'm just not sure that the overall upside is anywhere near as high this year as what it was last season. I actually do think there is a chance that Bogdanovic ends up a better fantasy guy than Hunter this season. But if you wanted to move on from him, I don't think it's going to cost you significantly, to be honest. Shall we go? And I'm taking a long time here on this show because this is all I'm going to do. We're just going to recap these 2 games, and I think that gives us a little bit more time to dig into some of these players. So, yeah, some apologies maybe, but that's okay. Just drop me into 2 times speed. We'll come back. We'll look at the Knicks side in a sec. Today's episode, though, is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. You can get ready to tackle all of the NFL action with FanDuel, which is, of course, America's #1 sportsbook. All new customers, when you place your first $5 bet and you win said $5 bet, you'll get $150 in bonus bets plopped straight into your account. When you're in the middle of a game, watching it with the old fellas being chill guys and snacking on the wings and the dips and whatever, and you want to place a live bet on the NFL, well, the FanDuel Sportsbook app has everything that you could possibly need. They've got the live stats. They're updating in real time. You've got the live play-by-play. There it is as well. Plus, all of the odds, of course, to make that live bet. So go and join at FanDuel.com today and get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel. By the way, the Knicks were second favorite for the NBA Cup, and that's not going to happen anymore. And the Hawks were, second worst favorite behind the Magic. So yeah, keep an eye on that one. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and don't forget to gamble responsibly. I'm not sure I'm going to have as much to say about the New York Knicks side of this game. There's just not as many interesting things, I don't think. Maybe there wasn't as many interesting things on the Hawks, and I just waffled. The Knicks rolled in with the same starting lineup. They had a few questionable guys before the game. That's Towns and Josh the Hitman Hart, and we'll start with those guys. Towns, he had 19 and 19. He had 5 assists, 3 steals, and 3 blocks. Unfortunately, both of his percentages, Karl Towns, sucked, but that is big stuff on 37 minutes. And reminder, the Knicks play again on Sunday. They will play against the Orlando Magic on Sunday. Josh the Hitman Hart, another elite shooting night, 67% from the field, 60 from 3, 71 from 2. He had 21, 8, and 6. His last game was a little bit down. I fail to believe that Josh will remain as this level of a shooter. Therefore, he is a sell high guy. But unlike DeAndre Hunter, he does everything else. Everything else he does, he's elite. And that's great. Brunson, not fantastic. And he sucked at both of his percentages. He had 14, 4, and 8. And Bridges, 19, 4, and 2, and Anunoby, 13, and 6. Not a lot to talk about, both those guys, especially Anunoby. Really struggled with the shooting. Bridges was actually good with the shooting, but not great from Bridges. And not Bridges, from Brunson. I maintain that Bridges, I keep saying Bridges. It's because they're both BRs. I maintain that Brunson's foot and ankle continue to bother him, and that's been the thing that's caused some of these downturn in production games, which has been frustrating. The thing I think is worth focusing on here is Precious Achiuwa, because you'll go and look at a Basketball Monster box score, or you'll see the fantasy value or the player rate or whatever, and you'll see that Precious is way up there. And you go, well, maybe I should grab him now. Mitchell Robinson's out until the end of January. I wouldn't do that. He did have 2 steals and 2 blocks here. That is true, and that is fantastic for him. He scored 2 points in 19 minutes, and that's the thing. He played 19 minutes. I just don't have any real interest in Precious as any sort of stashable guy. I think that if Towns was to miss, I would be interested in using Precious. But to me, he's the guy that gets the minutes if Towns is out, but not if anybody else is out. I also, like I've said, do not rate Precious as a player. I think that it's very hard for a player of any ability, let alone one of Precious's ability, to have a fantasy impact consistently in under 20 minutes a game. And that's where I think his value is going to be at And I wouldn't overreact to this performance from Achua, even though 2 steals and 2 blocks is bloody good. But you know what it also is? Not repeatable. So, again, we face forward. We look forward. We're going to go out there and take our rearview mirrors off our cars. So we don't look backwards. Don't do that. Disclaimer, do not do it. Don't do it. Pretty sure it's illegal, but don't do it. But we're looking forwards. And that sort of stuff just isn't real. It's great that it happened. Smile that it happened. The steals and blocks are the friends we made along the way or some shit like that. But it's not a real thing. Can't happen like that at that volume in those minutes. And the thing that's more real is the minutes versus the steals and the blocks. Juice McBride had been getting 26 to 27 minutes, but he didn't. He played 20 minutes. He had 5, 2, and 3. And you know that I've talked about Juice having this ability to be a stream guy or a stash guy because he had 4 pathways to 40 minutes a night and he was getting 25 to 26 anyway. This is a little different because he played only 20. So if he's a 20-minute a night player, which I don't think that he is, because he's been like a 26-minute a night guy nearly every game. But if he now turns back to a 20-minute a night guy, then you know what he is? Not a stash. Because that's not actually going to provide enough value as a 12-team league player. If he's getting those minutes, if he is producing at the 26-minute a night level, then sure. But with 19, I don't think that's enough to... and I wouldn't make the move after this one, but I don't think that's enough to be confident that you can hold him in 12-team leagues. So that's one that we just do want to watch a little bit closer as we move forward. All right, the second game in what was a very wild ending, a huge comeback. The Rockets get the win, 91-90 over the Golden State Warriors. So now I can tell you what's going to happen. The Rockets are going to play the Thunder on Saturday. The Warriors are going to play the Mavericks on Sunday. The Knicks are going to play the Magic on Sunday. The Bucks are going to play the Hawks on Saturday. That's it. No games to be scheduled. That is it. It is done. It is finished. It is sorted. Let's talk about the Golden State Warriors here in this game. They didn't make any changes to their starting lineup because foreseeable future legend Steve Kerr told us yesterday that Andrew Wiggins was all good to go. He was fine. He was healthy, ready to play. The Warriors kept listing him questionable, but Steve Kerr told us that he was going to play. Of course, Wiggins didn't play, so they kept the same starting lineup out there, which is great news for all of us to be able to plan and adjust and make those moves. If there's anything you could... But this, and I've said this all the time, but is it a paradox? It probably isn't, right? But it's the thing is, like, if a coach tells you something, you really have no choice but to really believe it, at least like 75% believe it, because if you believe the opposite and then it turns out to be true, well, you'll just get like, but he told you he was going to do that, right? And then if you know that they're lying and they do it all the time and you distrust it, like you go, well, I don't know if Steve's telling the truth here. But then if it is true, like you know how it goes. It's frustrating. So yeah, Wiggins didn't play, I guess is the takeaway from that. So they rolled out the same starting lineup, which included Gary Payton, the second starting. He played just the 18 minutes. He did have 2 steals in that time, but he had played huge minutes in the game before, and that meant that we got more Brandon Podziemski. Can I trust it? No. Why would I? 31 minutes for Podziemski, 8 points. 4 assists, 2 steals, and 2 threes. And what he is, he's a streamer for days like this, at this stage. We had Kuminga starting again, the new and improved Jonathan Kuminga, who's going to lead them to the promised land, and that promised land is causing a foul at the end that caused him to lose the game. And he had what was actually quite a bad line for fantasy, even though on the surface it looks good. He had 20 points, that's true. He played a lot of minutes, and that's really interesting, the fact that they're giving him 20 shots. I don't know, there's something about that is not good coaching to me, because he's not that good, and I don't understand it. He took 20 shots, he hit 40% of them. He went 2 of 6 from the line, which hurts. He had 1 assist, no steals, and 1 block. He did have 7 rebounds, though. And yeah, like, we're rostering John Kuminga for now, but I just do not think that this is going to be a scenario that persists. That is 2 big ones in a row from Buddy Hield, and actually got defensive numbers, which is just the fluke. You don't get those ones from him. But the fact that Bud played 35 minutes, we go back, we add, we roll from there, we sell high if we can, and we understand that that's going to be a change in the foreseeable future. 2 steals and 2 blocks for Hield with 3 threes and 15 points. And Curry, just the 19 points for him. He did have 2 steals with 5 assists. Draymond was pretty good, 2 steals and a block for him. And not much else going on except Trace Jackson-Davis was back in the rotation. He played 15 minutes. Kevon Looney played 11. So again, it's just going to be up in the air every single game. And the only guys that we have any trust in are Steph near the top, Draymond near the back end, And at the moment, we're using Kuminga and Hield without any real confidence in what's going to happen with those blokes moving forward. In this game, we got Kyle Anderson basically taken out of the rotation. So yeah, figure that out. For the Rockets, Alperen Sengun does really struggle against Golden State. He was a -4 in a game they won by 1, but he was really key down the end, and he played a lot of minutes still. 32 minutes, 26, 11, and 5 for the delicate dancer Alperen Sengun. But obviously the Rockets had to make a change to their starting lineup because they brought Fred VanVleet back after he missed the last game, and that meant that Amen Thompson moved to the bench. Not much to talk about with Sengun, but let's talk about VanVleet, who had 8 points on 23%, which is, of course, really bad. That is terribly, terribly, terribly poor shooting. He did have 7 assists in this game with no defensive stats. And I know that happens a lot on days like this when there are 2 games on. You're going to hyper-focus on how bad Fred VanVleet is. Why is he playing? They need to trade him, bench him, cut him. I need him off my fantasy team. Yeah, it's been a bad season, but like this is like the, what's that guy's name? James Franco? The meme with the noose around his neck? Like first time, huh? You never had Fred VanVleet before and seen 40% shooting? That's what he does. All the time. Yet he's consistently one of the most impactful players in the entire NBA. He's a top 20 EPM player. He's a top 30 in LeBron. He is, his actual win shares per 48 is higher than it was last season. He's been a positive on-off player net rating for every single season of his career apart from one. He just is a good player. And yeah, the shooting has been bad. The thing that is worrying with VanVleet for this season, and it didn't really show up here, is the assists. They have been well down. And that is what has taken him out of being that top 30-ish player to being a guy that's not there, outside the top 50 at the moment. I'm very confident that Fred VanVleet won't remain a 32% three-point guy. Hey, a sub-40 field goal guy? Maybe. That he could possibly be that. I just think he's a better three-point shooter than this. So to me, this is a huge, huge, huge buy low on VanVleet. The thing that I'd be very cautious about is the passing and the assists. His box creation number, which is an estimate total for the way that you're able to get open shots to your teammates, factoring in a whole bunch of stuff, is well down. For the last 3 seasons, it had been over 8. This season, 5.3. That is a worrying sign in terms of just the amount that he's asked to do in terms of setting up for others is down. And that is the thing that is the concern. It's not the shooting. He's going to have bad nights. I know this. This is always baked in. We know that that'll happen. And I actually think there's some pretty significant positive regression coming for VanVleet on the three-point shooting. The thing that I'm worried about is the passing. So after a game like this, which stinks, I'd be buying low. Amen Thompson was really good again, 29 minutes, 10 and 5, 3 assists, 1 steal and 2 blocks. Of course, his value is going to fluctuate a lot. Same with Tari Eason, who wasn't that good. 9 and 7 in 24 minutes, but both Tari and Amen should be rostered. Jalen Green hit the key free throws at the end. He shot poorly, but he did have 3 steals. We got the free throws off that steal. He continues to be like highly polarizing as a real life player as well as a fantasy guy. At the moment, he's doing enough. And the same goes with Jabari Smith, who had 15 points with 1 rebound. Shout out to him. But he did have 2 blocks and chimed in there with 3 triples, and the minutes were well up for him. Dylan Brooks did his stream thing, 9 points, 2 steals, a block. That is what he does. We stream him at times on low volume days, and we never have any confidence that we're going to get anything good out of him. But overall, I think the takeaways here are, Amen Thompson was solid. Fred VanVleet was bad. And it's a big buy low. We're still holding on to Eason. And Jalen Green gets the steal, but still only plays 31 minutes in a game that does echo or mirror, I guess, a lot of the things that do happen at times to old mate JG. Jollibee Jalen. Should we do some awards? Let's do them. The monstrous line of the night. We're going to head across for this one to the New York Knicks, and we're going to go to Karl Anthony Towns. Townsy drops a 19 and 19 with 5 assists, 3 steals, and 3 blocks. Here's your monstrous. Your waiver wire line of the night was from the second game. It was Dylan Brooksy Brooks, who, again, it's not blowing us away, but 2 steals and a block is good. Hit his only free throw, didn't destroy your field goals. You're happy with that. His teammate is the young gun of the night. That is Amen Thompson, who had another 10-point game with 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, and 2 blocks. And the dud of the night is not Fred VanVleet, because he did get 7 assists, which is actually well up on his season numbers. It's Bogdan Bogdanovic, who I am getting a little concerned about where that's all going with him. 7 points, 2 rebounds, and 2 assists only for Bogdan, who, if I'm in a very shallow league, I consider that a droppable guy. And that is the NBA Cup quarterfinals done. A reminder, 2 games will be on Saturday, and one of them is going to be the Rockets and the Thunder. It's in Las Vegas. The second game is going to be the Hawks and the Bucks. That is in Las Vegas. There are 2 additional games to appear on Sunday. One of those is the Knicks and the Magic, and the other one of those is the Mavericks and the Golden State Warriors. That's it. That's the schedule. It is done, sorted, dusted, finished. And I am also finished. So go ahead and hit the thumb on this video, double bang it, and remember, if someone of your players had a bad day today, don't overreact. It's okay. It happens. Single game performances vary a lot. Ride with it, deal with it, acknowledge it, move on. And do the same with things in your life. Be positive, be critical, be constructive. Constructive. That's how we build up. That's how we be better. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.